Welcome back to Top Shelf EDU. I'm your host, Aaron Lee. Today, I'm joined by Bill Prescott, who's the Senior Associate Director of Admissions at Washington University in St. Louis. Thanks for joining me, Bill.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited as well. Can you introduce and describe WashU to students who may not know much about it and what makes it stand out compared to other top universities?
Yeah. So Washington University in St. Louis, or WashU as we're more commonly kind of referred to as, we're located in the wonderful city of St. Louis, Missouri. So right in the middle part of the U.S. We are a medium-sized research university. So our undergraduate population is about 7,500 undergraduate students, and then we have about 8,000 graduate students as well. We are a research university in our charter and our mission. So that's something I always stress to students as they're learning more about the school is that hands-on research and experiential learning. We have about 4,000 active research projects on campus. But at the same time, we have the size and feel of a much smaller institution in the classroom. And I think that medium size is a really nice balance. And what I mean by that is that we maintain a 7-to-1 student to faculty ratio at the undergraduate level, and 80% of classes are 30 students or fewer. So classes tend to be very small, very hands-on. I think that's a really powerful thing, getting to know your professors and your peers. And also the residential nature of our campus and our community. And we bring in students from all across the United States and around the world. And for those of you who've not had a chance to visit St. Louis, Missouri, I highly recommend it. It's a world-class city, lots of cool things to do, both on and off campus. And our campus is in the city on the west side. So you have access to the city, but still have that classic traditional campus environment and feel. So those are a couple things I always like to mention when I start talking about WashU, but happy to dive more deeply into kind of more specifics on some of those things as well.
Yeah, that's great. So understanding that it's really research driven, and that's going to be really important for students, especially when they want to either go on to grad school or they want to build those skills for their jobs and their careers. So that's really important. And the small class sizes too is really important for students as well who want that more intimate community setting. So that's really good to know. What are your most popular programs, and are there any unique or underrated programs that students should know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So WashU has about 100 different majors or fields of study that we offer for undergraduate students. So at the undergraduate level, we have academic schools, the largest being our College of Arts and Sciences, which is our home of the liberal arts. So there's about 70 majors in arts and sciences, whether it's in the humanities or the social sciences or the natural sciences and mathematics. But we also have our McKelvey School of Engineering, the Olin School of Business, and then we have our Sam Fox School of Design and Visual Arts, which houses both our College of Art and College of Architecture. So very specialized focus programs in those areas. So all really strong areas and strengths of focus. I think often as people first hear of WashU, particularly for our strengths in the sciences, we have a very strong kind of natural sciences program. I think engineering as well, the business school. And then art and architecture are very specialized in some of our world-class programs for those specific students. But I think also the connection to our graduate schools as well. So we have world-class schools like our medical school, our Bush School of Law, the Bursky School for Public Health, which is our newest school at WashU, and then the Brown School of Social Work. So lots of opportunities there. And I think a nice thing about the flexibility at WashU is that students can really take classes across all the different undergraduate schools, and it's very easy to double a major and minor. So no matter where you end up studying, you're going to get a world-class education.
Yeah, that's really good to know because that would kind of led me into my next question in terms of, sometimes when students start, they're not really sure about what they may want to study. Sometimes they know for sure, and sometimes they have an idea. If a student starts in a certain major, how difficult is it to switch their major? And when would they be able to do that? Would they have to do it during first year? Could it happen after second? How does that kind of look for students?
Absolutely. So when students apply to WashU, they do pick one of our 5 undergraduate academic schools. So they indicate on their application arts and sciences or business or engineering or art or architecture. And one of our supplemental essay questions asks students to write a little bit more about what they are interested in studying at WashU and why. So we ask students to be thoughtful in picking the division that makes the most sense for them when they're applying. But when they get to WashU, they come in as an undecided student. And they have until their second semester of their sophomore year, their second year, to officially decide and declare a major. So it's okay if a student knows, I want to do business, but I don't know what type of business I want to do yet. And that first year is no matter what school you're in, is really meant to help students explore across those different areas and commit to a major. Students can and will double major or minor or take classes in any academic school. So if you have interests that span across multiple schools, it is very flexible to do that. And students will change their minds a lot. I always tell students being undecided is awesome and that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to have everything figured out at 17, 18 years old. And the most common major actually for students coming in is undecided. So it is very flexible. While we ask you to pick one school when you apply, you have a lot of choices to take classes across all the different schools when you get on WashU's campus.
Yeah, that's really good information. So for anybody that's applying and may not know for sure what they want to study, just know that you do have time to kind of take some classes and see where your passions lie. Thanks for that. Now, are there any kind of academic support systems? So students show up in their first year and they're moving away from home and it can be tough in terms of the transition. What types of support systems are available for students?
Absolutely. There's a lot of support for students throughout their time at WashU. Our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Dr. Ana Gonzalez or Dr. G, talks a lot about what we call health aid excellence at WashU. So really making sure students have that care and support they need and leaving WashU in a better space than when they graduate and all dimensions of that. And there's a lot of support for students, whether it's students are assigned a 4-year academic advisor when they first arrive on our campus. So that's their academic advisor for their 4 years, all 4 years at WashU. We also have resources like our Center for Diversity and Inclusion, our health and wellness center, our student transitions and engagement team that oversees orientation, our Taylor Family Center for Student Success, the Writing and Speaking Center. I also would mention that the residential life, we have a first year residential college house system, similar to what I know a lot of schools in Canada have. So I think you'll get to meet faculty and staff through that. Then I'd also mention for our international students, 2 specific offices that we have, which are our Office of International Students and Scholars, OISS, that they do a lot of support with students, particularly around visas and immigration and work authorization, things like that. And then also our Office of International Student Engagement, OISE, who really does a lot of support on helping students get adjusted to the community and culture on campus, getting to connect with the larger international student community and faculty and staff community, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. And so there's a lot of different layers of support. Also, our Center for Career Engagement for kind of postgraduate kind of and job and internship planning. So there's a lot of, I think one of the things I always appreciate about a place like WashU is while we are a university, it's hard to hide. And I think again, that benefit of that small class sizes and the smaller community and residential life, there's so many layers of support that I could probably talk for hours, but those are just a couple ones that come to mind right now.
And that's really good to hear, especially for those students who are moving away for the first time and for families as well to know that they do have the support when they get there. And it's just being able to reach out and get that support when you need it. Now we're going to move into the student life. You mentioned the residents. Can you explain when students show up on campus, kind of take us through that, maybe the first few days or the first week of their transition into WashU and also what to expect in student life?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned in my previous, what I just kind of mentioned in my previous question answer, we are very much a residential campus experience. And I think that's something that's important for students to know when they arrive at WashU. We guarantee housing for all 4 years. And students are required to live on campus for at least their first 2 years. So at least for their freshman and sophomore years. So in that first year, all students live on an area of our campus called the South 40, which is home to our 10 first-year residential colleges. So students are randomly assigned into one of those 10 first-year residential colleges, which are all led by a faculty advisor called a faculty fellow. There's also other faculty and staff and student advising support kind of built in as well. So that really is kind of your helps in that transition, finding that community. Students are random. That random assignment means you're going to meet students from all over the world, all over the U.S., all different academic interests, social interests, and having that sense of community. The South 40 is a kind of a mini village setup. So you've got everything you can kind of need from study spaces and lounges to dining facilities, our health center. A lot of our student-run businesses have spaces on the South 40. It's just a really cool place to live and study. And WashU has been ranked as having some of the best dorms in the country by the Princeton Review in recent years. So that's something we take a lot of pride in as well. In your sophomore year, most students will live on the South 40 as well. And then there's a variety of other more apartment or suite style options students can choose from on or adjacent to campus. And about 16 different dining facilities across our campus as well. So that's kind of the residential piece of student life. But I also always love to mention the clubs and organizations and ways you can get involved there. So we have about 400 student organizations on our campus. So you can really find your niche in any kind of area, whether it's the performing or visual arts, service or outreach opportunities, political or social groups, religious organizations, writing opportunities like our student newspaper, fraternity or sorority life, athletics, whether it's Division III varsity athletics, club or intramural sports. There's always a lot going on kind of on campus. And that starts from the moment you arrive during orientation, which starts about a week before classes start in the fall. So the entire first year class moves in. They have a week together kind of on campus, kind of help them with that orientation and transition for our international students. They come about a day or two before that as well to get to know their international community and the support there. So I think that really helps in the transition to WashU and helps students really thrive in that transition from high school to college.
Yeah, for sure. And having all those opportunities and all those options is really, really important because students should be able to find something that they're interested in and passionate about. And again, that's where they're going to find their people. That's where they're going to find their groups of friends and really maybe come out of their comfort zone. And it's really important that they do join those clubs, activities, whatever they're interested in. Uh, so thank you for that. What's it like? What should students expect when they move in terms of St. Louis and in terms of what types of students thrive at WashU and what should students expect within the city as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, Aaron. I think I'll take the first part of that question about kind of what students really succeed and thrive when they get on campus. And I think for me, when I think of WashU students, I think of students who are really interested in diving into different topics deeply. They're willing to ask questions. They're very curious. They want to engage and collaborate with them, with their peers and with faculty. They're definitely academically motivated, but I don't think it's in a cutthroat kind of I have to beat everyone for that A in the class. I think the residential nature of campus also seems really nice. They're really friendly. They want to engage, and they're also some of the smartest people I know. And I think students kind of come into that kind of knowing, getting to know their community as well. WashU is a very diverse and global community. We bring in students from all across the US, over 30 countries around the world. About 12% of our students come from outside the US currently in the international in our undergraduate student population. So they really want to engage in dialogue and discussion with their peers. And I think students also come into that, wanting to learn more about the city of St. Louis they call home. Over two-thirds of our students come to campus from over 500 miles away. So for a lot of times, students may not know a ton about St. Louis, and then they get to campus and they see how awesome and amazing the city is. St. Louis is a bigger city than a lot of people think as well. There's about 2 million people in the St. Louis metro area, if you count going into the suburbs. So lots of cool things to go and explore. And it's whether it's kind of checking out our campus is a couple hundred acres in the city, as I mentioned kind of earlier. So you have that kind of classic traditional campus environment feel, but you also have access to right across the street from campus. You've got Forest Park, one of the top parks in the US. It's over 1,300 acres, so it's bigger than Central Park in New York City. So you've got miles of running and biking trails. You've also got tons of amazing free attractions like the St. Louis Zoo, St. Louis Art Museum, the Missouri History Museum, all right there. You've got our world class Central West End neighborhood, which is home to our medical school campus. Downtown, you've got right on the Mississippi River, the iconic Gateway Arch. Also, all of our professional sports teams play downtown. And it's pretty easy to navigate and explore the city. So every student at WashU gets a free public transit pass called a U Pass to take our light rail train system or the bus system around the city. About 6 blocks north of campus, you've got Delmar Boulevard or the Loop, one of the best restaurant residential districts in the city. That's a very popular spot for students on the weekends. So it's very easy to get to know our city. Students get very involved in service and outreach work or job or internship opportunities or St. Louis for fun. Part of orientation also involves kind of a day called In the Lou. So we really encourage students to go out um, that day of orientation to really get to know the city, both for kind of getting to know the history and the community that they're joining, but also for fun and getting to kind of experience that side as well. So I think the opportunities on campus are great, but also having an amazing city like St. Louis, so we call home, is a really integral part of the WashU experience.
Yeah, that's incredible because, as you mentioned, not only all the opportunities on campus, but to be able to explore the city and, having those, whether it's professional sports teams, whether it's the great restaurants or anything around there, that's really good for students to know as well. Okay. We're going to move into the admissions. And I kind of want to look at the lens of an international applicant as well. I'm in Canada, and we have a lot of international students who are looking to apply. And there's a lot of, I don't want to say mystery about how holistic applications go, but would you be able to walk us through how WashU approaches the holistic admissions? Can you walk me through like an application reading? Like how many times is it read? How long do you typically spend on it? And are they read by region? Are they read by program?
Yeah, great questions, Aaron. Yeah, I think as someone who's worked in admissions for over a decade at a couple different schools, at three different schools throughout my career, I think holistic admissions is is kind of a black box for a lot of students and families, and it's a little bit misunderstood. But I always think of kind of that holistic and what we always talk about at WashU contextualized and individual kind of review is we're really trying to get to know each student as an individual, their unique strengths, talents, and abilities, and how they might add and contribute those to the WashU community and experience. So for us, when I think about that review, there's always multiple layers of review. So at a minimum, there's always at least or three sets of eyes on every single application. So typically for our reviews in that first review, I would say it's probably about 10 to 12 minutes on average, depending on the file and things like that. That the first reader is doing, or we also sometimes read applications in what we call committee based evaluation or CBE, where we have two admissions officers kind of reading the file simultaneously and sharing and taking notes as well. So that might be a little bit faster as well. But in that first review, some of the things we're really looking at, we're looking at the academics. So we're looking at a student's kind of core, what we call academic rigor. So the courses the students taking at their high school based on the curriculum that's available to them, the grades they earned in those classes, and kind of thinking about that. And then we also will dive into other parts of the application. So we're looking at activities, extracurricular engagements, honors, awards that a student might list. We're looking at the personal essay statement they write on the Common App. We look at our supplemental part of the application. So we're looking closely at what academic division the student's interested in, our one required supplemental essay question about what they're interested in studying and why. We're also looking at what letter of recommendations say about them. So we ask for a letter of recommendation from from your high school counselor, and then also from a teacher at your school, who tell us a little bit more about who you are in your community and in and out of the classroom. And then there's sometimes other optional or other parts of the application. For example, our art and architecture students, we have a portfolio component that's considered by faculty in those schools, required for art, recommended for architecture applicants. We're test optional for the SAT or ACT. So if standardized testing is submitted, we've added into the admissions review. If it's not, we just read the application based on the materials we have on file. So all that's factored in by the admissions committee. And while the first couple reads, it might just be one or two admission officers looking at it in depth. When it gets to the committee process, and there might be multiple rounds of committees depending on the school, it's a much larger in-depth discussion and review. And we're really looking at each student's unique strengths and how they might add them. Like a lot of schools, we do have kind of officers assigned to different regions around the world. So I'm the admissions officer for our team who works with students applying from across Canada, helping kind of lead that conversation in the committee and presenting that file to the room. But ultimately, it's a larger vote. And I think that's one of the misconceptions, particularly with holistic admissions and for more selective schools like WashU.
Okay, that was really in depth, and I really appreciate that because that will hopefully provide some clarity for a lot of students and families who aren't just really sure about what goes into it. Because one of the things that I often hear is that schools are looking for a one type of student, and a lot of times students or families are trying to figure out what that student is, and then they're trying to build their portfolio or their profile to that student. Is that a mistake? Is that something that they're missing out on, or what kind of advice would you give for that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Aaron. I think when I think about I think about the process for our admissions class at WashU, and WashU, I would say we're in the minority of types of schools in the U.S. and that we're in the more highly selective category of schools. This past year, we received a little over 33,000 applications for admission, and our overall admission rate was about 12%, and that puts us in a very small minority of colleges in the U.S. There's about 4,000 schools in the U.S. Colleges, universities, and the vast majority of them accept over half the students who apply. So WashU and schools like WashU often get a lot of the press and the notoriety, but it's really about finding the school that's the right fit for them. But I think to your question about kind of crafting an application, we are looking to build a community. We don't want 1,940 students, which is our incoming freshman class size this year, to all look and sound the same. We're looking for I know the analogy you'll often hear admissions officers talk about is like building an orchestra or a football team. You need a lot of different types of things in that community to build it. So we want students who are very focused and pointed in one kind of area of interest. We want students who are very well rounded. We want students who are great leaders. We also want students who are very active community presences, but may not and find and are great roommates and great contributors to projects. And what I always tell students, I think some of the mistakes sometimes students think is they say, well, my friend got into WashU doing X, Y, and Z. So that's the secret formula. That's what they're look, that's, I have to copy that because that's what my friend got in. they must know the secret sauce. But the reality is, if that's not who authentically you are in terms of your interests and your goals and what you write about, it's not going to land in the same way. So, really, I think the biggest piece of advice I tell students and families in this process is be yourself, highlight all the cool and amazing things you want us to know as admissions reps to know about you. And that might look different from another student from your high school who's applying, but being authentic to yourself is what really stands out in this process. And different parts of the application will speak louder for different students throughout from my experience.
Yeah, you make many great points there, especially being authentic because as you mentioned, you read thousands and thousands of applications every year. And I'm pretty sure that you can tell within the first 30 seconds of reading an application and kind of looking through their recommendations and all of their experiences if it's authentic or if it's trying to be too direct in one way. So making sure that you come off as authentic because you are being authentic is going to be really important. Earlier, you mentioned rigor in terms of what you look for in your application process and in terms of classes. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because we often find that students are under the impression that if they are, I'm going to speak specifically for AP because our school is an AP school. I know there's IB as well, but students often have the misconception of they have to take every AP course that's offered, and schools are looking for a certain number of AP courses or they won't get looked at. Is that true?
Very common misconception question we get, Aaron, and happy to kind of address that. So, when we talk about academic rigor, we are looking at students in the context of their what's available in their specific high school. So, one of the reasons we also assign admissions officers to different geographic regions or parts of the world is it gives us more ability to get dive in depth and be understand the familiarity of that each school's particular curriculum and course offerings. I know, for example, in Canada, every single province there's different grade scales across different provinces and what's available in different high schools. And we see a lot of different curriculums. Some schools offer AP, some schools offer the IB diploma track, some schools just offer the kind of national provincial curriculum. There's quite a wide range out there. So we're not expecting students to have classes on their transcripts that aren't offered at their high schools, so like having to self study for exams or things like that. And when we talk about rigor, we want to. It's definitely help. It's great for students to challenge themselves in classes, but that doesn't mean you have to take every single AP under the sun. Like if taking 5 or 6 APs in grade 12 is not going to be the best thing for your mental and physical health, I would advise a student and talking with their counselor, like that might not be the right thing to do. But challenge yourself where it's appropriate. I've never been in the admissions committee where it was like we were looking at two students and one student had 6 APs and the other one had 7. And we were like, aha, the one with 7 must have the more rigorous curriculum. Both are different in different ways. So I always encourage students when you're thinking about rigor, we're looking at you in the context of what's available in your high school and challenge yourself where it's appropriate. Like if you're really thinking about math or science or engineering, like challenge yourself in math and sciences. But if you're not a language person, it's okay if you don't take like that AP language class if you're thinking about engineering, for example. Still take a couple years of languages. We do want to see students taking classes across a wide range of areas, but I think it's okay. I think it's important to find balance. And that sometimes I think, especially when we talk about rigor in the admissions process, we maybe don't explain that in the way I think it should be explained to students and families.
No, I think it's just this misconception where people have where they think it's going to give them that advantage, but it's not really like there's no perfect piece of the pie. There's no perfect profile. It's, as you said, it's holistic. And there's a lot of things that go into it, including your demonstrated interest, which kind of moves me into applying early. Now, at WashU, can you apply ED? Do you offer EA, regular decision? And how does that go into either helping students with the application, showing their demonstrated interest? And would who would you advise to do that and maybe who may not want to do that?
Yeah, great questions. And I'll start with kind of the application round. So we have 4 different application rounds at WashU. So we have 2 rounds of early decision, which we have early decision one is a November 2nd deadline this upcoming year. Early decision two is a January 4th deadline. And then we have early action, which is also a November 2nd deadline, or regular decision, which is a January 4th deadline. I think the way I always kind of think about them, so for early decision, students typically find out their decision about 4 to 6 weeks after that admissions deadline. So mid December for ED1, mid-February for early decision too. If you've done your research, you know WashU is your absolute 100% top choice fit and number one school. You've also done your homework on the financial aid side of that conversation, and you've looked at cost and what that might look like for you and your family. I definitely encourage you to think about early decision. But the catch is for early decision is that if you're admitted to a school like WashU that offers ED, the expectation is that you, at that point, you are going to withdraw the rest of your applications and put in your enrollment deposit to attend WashU for that upcoming fall. So we do encourage students who, if they know WashU is their number one choice and they've done their homework, they're comfortable with financial aid and things like that, strongly consider early decision. But we also know that that's not the right fit for every single student. And that's where things like early action come in. So for early action, students will find out their decision by the end of December, but they have until May 1st to accept or decline that offer. So that's a great option, I think, for students who might know WashU's high in their interest list, but they may want some time to compare admissions offers or financial aid offers, things like scholarships, things like that. And then regular decision is another great option as well. That tends to be our largest application round. And students have that time. They'll find out their decisions by late March, early April, and then have until May 1st to accept or decline their offer as they weigh with other schools. So I think for choosing rounds, I think tends to be a slightly higher admission rate for students applying in the early decision rounds compared to our other application rounds, just given the self-selecting nature of that pool, but it is still a very selective round. So I always encourage students like pick the round that's the right fit for you, thinking about that. And then the other thing you mentioned, kind of, Aaron, is demonstrated interest. And this is something that some, but not all, colleges and universities in the US track. But that's demonstrated interest is, has the student engaged with our office throughout the process? Have they signed up for our mailing list? Have they, if we were visiting Vancouver or Toronto or another city, or we're visiting their high school, did they come see us at a high school visit or a college fair? Or did they join a virtual information session to learn more about our institution? Or we don't offer interviews at WashU, but some schools might offer interviews, and that could be another way to demonstrate interest. So, or did they come to visit us on campus in St. Louis? And demonstrated interest is another one of those many factors that might come into play in the admissions process. It's not the end all be all, but it's also a great way for students to learn about a school and what's the right fit for them. So I think it's about finding the round that's the right fit for them. And trying to figure out that piece. But there's a lot of ways to engage with offices. And I always encourage students, even if the school doesn't track interest, don't hesitate to reach out to our office and ask us questions. We want to make sure students get the questions answered as they're considering options throughout the search process.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to make sure that if they have those questions, once they're answered, they can make a more informed decision, not only which round to apply, but which school may be a better fit for them. That's really
Mhm.
good information. Now, with the use of AI being pretty much integrated in everything we do nowadays, can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing with students and how you might advise a student who may be planning to use AI in their writing, and possibly how is WashU using AI in any way?
Yeah, great question. So we kind of expect that. What I always tell students with AI is we really expect their application to be an honest representation of their own work. So it's okay if students use outside resources to help with brainstorming or kind of framing out something like an essay or things like that, or asking it to help with clarity or things like that. But you could also do the same thing with a teacher or a counselor or things like that. But what I would discourage students from do is really putting their essay into ChatGPT and then just hitting submit with their application. And I think about that with the Common Application as well. Like, part of the application is when you hit submit, before you submit the Common App to any colleges, there's a part of an attestation that students say that the work I'm submitting is my true and authentic voice and story and self. We recognize that AI can be a helpful tool for students as they're going through this process and learning more about schools and drafting things like that. But I would discourage students from kind of submitting their whole application through AI. In terms of how we use it on the admission side, we're not running essays through kind of a chat AI detection platforms or things like that, or using it to like evaluate transcripts and things like that. I know that's a question we've gotten as well. But I think there's a lot of we're interested to see where the technology goes and develops. I think that's something we're thinking about as a university too. I mean, WashU has a number of initiatives kind of right now about how AI and helping strengthen AI literacy amongst their students, faculty, and staff, and kind of understanding how it might translate in the workforce over the next few years as well too. But I think specifically for the admissions process, we really encourage students to be there. Again, that idea of authenticity is so important in this process. And while it can be a helpful place to kind of start out with, you should definitely make sure your voice and story comes through. And we can definitely tell, even without running it through a platform, like what is a 17 or 18-year-old high school student sounds and writes in an essay versus what ChatGPT might say.
Yes, such good information. Even though it may be easier for students to use that, students, please think about this because they will know right away as they read thousands and thousands of essays and they want to hear your authentic voice. They want to know who you are, what you believe in, what you value, and ChatGPT doesn't know that. So please reconsider if you're thinking about putting your whole essay through there. Now, we're just going to move into in terms of you mentioned earlier about financial aid. For international students, are there any scholarships or financial aid available to them?
Yeah, yeah. Great question, Aaron. So, in terms of financial aid, um, it's going to, one thing you'll hear admission officers talk a lot about is it depends. So, it's going to vary school by school what they might offer in terms of scholarships or financial aid for students. For WashU, we do our our financial aid policy kind of varies a little bit based on students, whether if a student holds U.S. citizenship or permanent residency versus international students. So, the main difference for that is on the admissions review side. So for students who hold U.S. citizenship or have permanent residency status, we read their applications in what's called a need blind admission process. So we do not consider their financial need as a factor in the admissions review process. For international students, we do read applications in what's called a need sensitive or a need aware process. So a student, if a student's planning to apply for need-based financial aid or not, maybe is a factor in that holistic admissions review. Another kind of factor that we talked about earlier. But one of the things I'm really proud about at WashU is that we are able to meet 100% of demonstrated financial need for students applying for need-based aid, regardless of citizenship, without student loans. So we do have some need-based financial aid available for international students as well as for our domestic students. So that is a great option for students and helping them kind of make sure that WashU is a great option in cost and affordability. We just have to consider their need is just to make sure for budgets and things like that as well. So there is need-based aid available. We do meet 100% of need, which is a great thing at WashU. And then we do offer some merit scholarships. These can be the students can be considered for. They are selective, so I always tell students it's not a guarantee that they may be offered a merit scholarship, but it can be a nice addition or bonus. International students can be considered for some of those as well. So those include our academic schools or divisions. Each offer kind of individual scholarships. The students are automatically reviewed for when they apply to WashU. And then we have a couple of, through our signature scholar programs, which are cohort based merit scholarships around different themes. There's a short essay students apply to be considered for one of those three signature scholar merit scholarships. So there are options there. I think cost and affordability is definitely a strong thing to think about as you're comparing college options, both your options in Canada or other countries around the world or US options to kind of finance your education. Another question I sometimes get with international students is on athletics. WashU is a Division III school in the NCAA. So while we have fantastic varsity athletic teams, we do not offer specific scholarships just for varsity athletes, but we do have a great athletic program. So if you're looking to compete in college athletics, definitely consider D3 athletic institutions like WashU. It can be a great piece for your education, but we don't offer specific scholarships for just for athletics like you might hear at the Division I or II levels in the NCAA.
Yeah, no, that's great information. I played Division 3 hockey, so I know exactly how that is. And anybody that wants to play a sport at a Division 3 school, they're fantastic. So please don't get discouraged about the D1, the D2, or the D3. They are all great opportunities. And most importantly, is the education that you're going to be getting. So thank you for that, Bill. What would you say is the biggest myth about WashU?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think for me, I think one of the things that I think students sometimes don't realize they think about is I think oftentimes WashU has a really strong reputation in I think the health sciences and all the opportunities there. But I think sometimes students don't know about all the other amazing programs we have, whether it's in art and architecture or business or the humanities and social sciences. So I think that's a misconception there. I also think the other one that I often point to is I think St. Louis. I think St. Louis is a city that people just don't know a lot about, and I think sometimes it's a city that gets overlooked a little bit in the U.S. But I think it's a really cool and interesting and awesome city, and I think that's something that students, when they get to campus and you get to visit our city, people really come away and like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing world class city. There's tons of cool things to do both on and off campus. There's an amazing food and restaurant scene. It's a fantastic sports town. Like there's always so many amazing things. And as someone who's lived across the U.S. throughout my life, I think I really love St. Louis, and I think that's something that kind of that myth that there is not knowing much about the city, and something that I always encourage students to. If you have a chance to visit, it's great. Definitely, if you have the option to visit, it's great. But also take advantage of some of the virtual programming or virtual photos. Take a look at the videos or photos of campus. It's a really stunning and beautiful campus, and St. Louis is an awesome city. So I'd say that probably.
Okay. And what is one piece of advice that you would give to a student who's hoping to attend WashU?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice I always come back to when I think about the admissions process and helping students through that, and especially students who are shooting for selective colleges or universities like WashU is kind of their goal, is be yourself in this process. I think again that idea authenticity matters. I mean, I think it's important to really make sure your application tells a story, like really highlight like what you want us to know about you, rather than trying to write to what you think an admissions officer wants to hear. Highlight all the cool and amazing things you want us to do. You want us to know about you, and I think that'll come through. And I always come back to this idea of about it's finding the place that's the right fit for you. So not in all there's so many great colleges and universities all around the world, all across the US. So it's about finding the school that's the right fit for you. And that process can look a lot of different ways. But the other kind of thing I often give students advice, which kind of ties into this too, is don't let high school just be the sole goal of high school, just be to get to college. I think sometimes students want to rush through high school and it's really important to enjoy the time in high school, enjoy this time with friends and family, enjoy this process, but really come back to kind of make sure you're having fun with your friends and family and community, because going to college or university is a huge adjustment, and it's important to recognize that. But don't let the college process take over everything you're doing in high school. Like remember to have fun and enjoy your time this time with friends and family too.
Yeah, really good advice because it goes so quickly. It goes so quickly. Is there anything that you would like to add that may have not come up in our conversation or that you wish was asked?
Ooh, I think the only other thing I would say, and I might have alluded to this a little bit earlier, Aaron, is don't be afraid to ask for help and reach out to admissions offices if you have questions. I think sometimes students have this misconception that admissions folks like myself are these scary people in dark offices and back rooms that aren't don't want to answer your questions and don't want to help and are kind of my favorite part of my job is meeting people and working with students and families throughout this process. So let us know if you have questions. Our goal is to help you kind of through this search process, and whether it's WashU or helping you find another school that's a great fit for you, we want to help you be informed, you and your family be as informed as possible as you're going through the process and search, because we know it can be complicated at times. So don't be afraid to reach out to admissions offices, ask your questions. We want to help you kind of as you navigate this process, along with your counselors and teachers and other supporters you might have at your high school.
Bill, that's fantastic. Again, for those that are listening, if you have any questions, please reach out. They're there to help. They want to speak with you and they want to help guide you into any decision that is best fit for you. Bill, this has been so great. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of the night and we'll talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Aaron, and have a great rest of your evening, folks. And good luck as you go through the college search and application process.
Thanks for tuning in to Top Shelf EDU, your inside look at the university experience. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone exploring their path to higher education. We'll be back with more insights, stories, and advice to help you navigate your journey. See you next time.